Yet another Hindu temple has been desecrated in Canada after being spray painted with anti-India graffiti. This happened late on Tuesday night. The target of the vandalism was the Baptist Sri Swami Narayan Mandir in the town of Windsor in the province of Ontario. As seen in past such attacks, anti-India, anti-PM Narendra Modi graffiti was painted. The CCTV footage of the desecration was released by the local police, showing two masked men defacing the temple. Police is investigating this act now as a hate-motivated incident. There is a suspicion that separatist groups could be behind this incident of temple vandalism. Despite the Indian government raising concerns to this mounting aggression, especially of separatist-linked groups in Canada, the required action is less than satisfactory. This is now the fifth such attack that has taken place in Canada in less than a year, and I mean temple defacement. 2 months ago, the target was the Sri Ram Mandir in the town of Mississauga in GTA. Slogans spray-painted, including those attacking India and the Prime Minister, and describing the founder of the separatist Khalistan movement, Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale, as a martyr. Prior to that, on January 30, the Gauri Shankar Mandir in Brampton was similarly desecrated. Before that, a statue of Mahatma Gandhi located at the Vishnu Mandir in Richmond Hill was defaced in July last year. Weeks later, also last year in September, an episode of such vandalism occurred at the front entrance also of the Babs Sri Swaminarayan Mandir, this time in Toronto. India has condemned these attacks and raised the issue with Canadian authorities. Listen.
This is a very unfortunate incident and we condemn it. This issue has been taken up with the Canadian authorities. With the same request that we have made on earlier occasions, please catch the perpetrators, please try to prevent, ensure that this does not happen again. And I hope that Canadian authorities are able to take action on those lines. But certainly, yes, let me reiterate, we condemn it and it has been taken up with the Canadian authorities.
While there's an obvious separatist Khalistani angle to such attacks taking place, especially in countries like Canada where they have large presence, is this also once again a reminder that there is almost a free run for Hindu haters? Because this is not political messaging alone. This is also messaging against a community that is taking place. Let's go across to the guest joining us. Former diplomat Ashok Sajjanhar is joining us. Dr. Makran R. Paranjpe, Professor JNU and political commentator. Anang Mittal is joining us from the US, political analyst. Professor Paranjpe, I want to come to you. You know, I shudder to think if such repeated attacks, and these are 5-6 attacks that have taken place in 1 year alone against temple premises in Canada alone. I'm not even counting what has happened in other Western countries or Australia for that matter. If such attacks had happened against mosques, against churches, I shudder to think what the response would have been. And here we have complete, placid to no response from authorities.
Well, I think I heard that in Windsor, they are trying to apprehend the suspects and so forth. But I think much more is expected from Western governments. And we've had attacks in Leicester, we've had them in Brisbane, we've had them in Melbourne. So this seems to be a concerted attempt by these elements, these Khalistani elements abroad, to create a dissension and hatred between Hindus and Sikhs, which is very unfortunate. So that's one side of it. And the other side of it seems to be the lackadaisical attitude, the laxity on the part of law enforcement and government officials in these countries, because they have intelligence and they know what to do. It happened in UK as well. So it seems to me that the Indian government has already mounted pressure. When the Australian Prime Minister was here, he was spoken to about this and he himself said this is intolerable. So I think that there is already an attempt to stem this tide of rising hatred against Hindus. But this is a part of a larger problem, is what I'm trying to say. And fundamentally, What is at stake is the use of the freedoms offered by Western societies to carry out anti-India activities. And a strong message needs to go out from India that this will not be tolerated.
Now, I can understand political activity against India being allowed, and I know that in diplomacy, all such groups are used, especially by these Western countries, against countries like India, who they want to pin under their thumb. Sorry for the use of that expression, but it's true, right? Now, I can understand political activity being given space. They have liberal laws for that, but I don't think they have liberal laws for places of worship being attacked. In fact, they lecture countries like India on minorities and how protected they are, Anang Mittal. The US does it, Canada would do it, other countries would do it. I'm just failing to understand how 5 Hindu temples, a minority religious place, have been attacked consistently and it keeps happening.
Look, I think the wider question is that people do need to understand that Hindus are a minority in these countries, and I think the real answer here is that the community also needs to get together and condemn these attacks, and also work with interfaith religious leaders. I think I understand that we want to get some aid and some help from India, and India does need to condemn these attacks. But I think people here also need to come together. The Hindu community needs to get support from communities here also. And I think that's the real problem that I'm seeing, is that India and the Hindu community are being conflated. And that's the sad fact, that politics is completely making a giant toxic mess out of what should be a community issue, a minority issue, not a geopolitical issue.
No, but Anang, why is there no condemnation of the kind that you would see if any other minority community is attacked? Why is it that Hindu hate is okay? Defacing Hindu temples is okay? Is it because Hindus are less organized? They have less political capital? But then that only shows how hypocritical and shallow these messaging from these countries are. You only care if it affects your political constituency.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right, and that's true. That's very much true. But I think some action is being taken. So organizations like the Hindu American Foundation and Kona are trying to organize us, and I think that's the real answer: is that we do need to get together. We need to lobby our officials. We need to tell government officials that these kind of attacks are just completely unacceptable, and that they do need condemnation from the local authorities and from the national level authorities. Exactly. But then that again goes to places like Canada, where the national authorities seem to turn a blind eye to this. But certainly in America and other countries, we're seeing some levels of understanding from officials, but that needs community engagement for sure. Yeah. That's what we're trying to do.
For a large country of now 1.4 billion people, India is termed intolerant. Unfortunately for us, a lot of Indians only do it. So I can't quite blame, foreigners alone for such narratives. But why should a Canada not be called intolerant if a minority community keeps getting attacked there and their law enforcement is unable to act? They may make some measures now. Ashok Sajjanhar, I want to come to you. The vexing issue here is, what can India do? What can Indian government do? They do make statements. They, of course, do press on their counterparts. Is there more that we can do?
No, I definitely think we can do more on that score. A couple of things, Shivani, and, the first point that you had made, that if it was, similar attacks against mosques, would the host governments take it so very casually, take it so very easily? And the answer all of us know is no, it wouldn't be like that if it was any other minority community. Because I think some of these communities, particularly as far as the Muslim community is concerned, they have been able to build up this whole narrative of there being some sort of an Islamophobia, while the perpetrators being turned victims, or so to say. So I think in that context, we also need to really go out. The Hindu community outside needs to go out and build up that there is palpable sort of, Hindu phobia also going on in a large number of countries. And this is something you would recall that, was it last year or was it year before that? We had also raised it at the United Nations, that along with the Islamophobia, there also needs to be equal attention provided to Hindu phobia, because that is
I think
also
India
a
had said
reality
that
as far as the world.
apart from Abrahamic faiths, we need to understand
Yes.
that there is phobia of other indigenous or
Religions,
pagan
other-
faiths
yes.
as well.
Absolutely. We had spoken about Hindu phobia. We'd spoken about Christians, phobia against Christians. That is the Abrahamic faith.
Yeah.
Against Sikhs and, the other religions
Indic
also. So I
faiths,
think
other
that
native
is
faiths of
something
other countries, yes.
of the other countries. So that is something also that we need to, look at, we need to work on.
Yeah.
The other is we need to be, like in the case of the United Kingdom, we have been very proactive and we sent out a very strong message when there was violence that was perpetrated against the High Commission, that this indifference of the UK authorities is not acceptable.
Yeah.
I think India has grown as a country. It is a very important economic partner of all these countries that we are speaking about. So I think in the fact that there would be consequences, that there would be a price to pay if appropriate action is not against, without specifying anything, what is it that we have in mind, what is it that we propose to do. But I think the message needs to go out that India is serious about it. Just mere condemnation, etc., and expressing the hope that there would be, the perpetrators of the crime would be identified and action would be taken against them. I think we need to go a little further, a little beyond that. And let me also add, I don't have the slightest doubt that, maybe the Ministry of External Affairs is not saying it out in so many words. It doesn't need to say it out in so many words. But I think through the back channels, through our conversations with our interlocutors at appropriate levels, this message needs to go out to these countries. And I'm sure it is going out to these countries also.
Okay.
The last point I want to make
Yes,
here,
sir, very quickly.
Shivani, is particularly in the case of Canada, it is, and also in the case of the United Kingdom, it is so closely linked to the vote bank politics.
Yeah, precisely.
And that is why, there is this reluctance that we see on the part of the host authorities, the host countries, because they are so very closely intertwined with those particular communities who are carrying out these cases. Like here, the Khalistanis in the United Kingdom, as far as the Islamic terrorists are concerned, and how they are, in terms of demonstrations.
Can I just take that forward with Professor
country.
Paranjpe for a quick minute? I'm running out of time. But Professor, generally I would say that victim mentality, victimhood, and weaponizing victimhood is unsavory. But unfortunately, it looks like that's how the game is played. Is this the way to go for Hindu people in these countries?
Not necessarily. I think our whole tradition, the Sanatan Dharma, has to play this in a different way. For example, we have to point out to the host countries that these are very dangerous elements. Let's not forget AI 182, downed in 1985, if I remember, more than 300 people died. So we have to tell them that it's not that we are saying this just because we are victims, but actually it's for your own safety and betterment. That's one side of it. The other side of it is a principled self-assertion by the diasporic Hindu community, because the future of their children is at stake, So we need not play victims, we need not be aggressors, but we have to be principled, firm, and strong. So I think the Hindu lion need not bite, but it should roar. I'm talking about the lions on our Ashoka Stambh.
Right. Okay. I think that's a good note to end on. Certainly the voice needs to be heard. And I think that's a good point you made, that ultimately these are snakes in your backyard. That point needs to be established. These are lawless elements. You encourage them against one. Tomorrow that tendency will come out against your own people, quote unquote, white Canadians as well. So I leave it on that note. I do thank all of our guests for joining us. Slipping into a very short break. On the other side, we'll get you some top international updates. Now, the Taiwanese president is in the United States, and China, as always, is not feeling very good about it.